Welcome to The Explainer. If you're learning French, you've probably hit that point. You know the one. You feel kind of stuck. You can get by, you can have conversations, but you're just not fluent. Well, today we're going to talk about that B2 plateau and, more importantly, how you can finally push past it.
So does this sound like you can get through most conversations, you understand what people are saying, but it just feels like your progress has flatlined? Your French is good, no doubt, but you know it could be great. If you're nodding along right now, don't worry, you are in exactly the right place. So this feeling, it actually has a name, the B2 plateau. It's that really tricky stage where your French works, for sure, but it's just missing that nuance, that natural flow that native speakers have. Let's dig into what that really means. Okay, first things first. This is a completely normal part of learning a language. Everyone hits this wall. And the secret to breaking through it isn't about learning 1,000 new words. No, it's about going back and fine-tuning the skills you already have, especially those little errors that have become baked-in habits.
So how do we start fine-tuning? Well, we have to diagnose the problem first, right? So let's play detective and look at 3 super common grammar traps that keep B2 learners from really sounding fluent.
We're talking about tricky agreements, those pesky prepositions, and of course, tense confusion. These are the kinds of subtle things that might not break a conversation, but they make your French sound just a little bit off to a native ear. Nailing these is a huge step towards sounding way more natural.
All right, let's tackle these head on. We're going to use a really simple but super powerful technique, putting the common mistake right next to the correct natural version. Seeing them side by side like this really helps make the right way just click.
First up, the all-time classic French challenge, agreements. Making sure everything in your sentence lines up perfectly with gender and number. This is where so many of those small but really noticeable errors tend to creep in. Okay, look really closely here. The only difference is one tiny little E at the end of acheter. So what's the deal with that? Well, it comes down to a specific rule in the passé composé. When the thing you're talking about, in this case, la nouvelle voiture, comes before the verb, that verb has to agree with it. It's a tiny detail, I know, but it makes a massive difference in how accurate you sound. Let's move on to our second trap, prepositions. You know, those tricky little words like de, and pour. They're small, yeah, but using the wrong one can totally change what you're trying to say, or at best, just make your sentence sound a little clunky. This is such a great example of how our brains can trick us. You think, well, it's aller à Paris, so it must be visiter à Paris too, right? But nope, the verb visiter doesn't need any help. It connects directly to the place you're visiting. No preposition needed. It's a subtle shift, but it immediately makes you sound more like a native speaker. And for our third and final trap, let's talk about tense confusion. This is a big one, especially when you're choosing between past tenses like the imparfait versus the passé composé. One is for setting the scene, and the other is for specific actions. So what's going on here? If you say il a plu, you're treating the rain like a single, finished event, like it started and stopped in a flash. But that's not the idea, is it? The rain was the background setting for when you went out. So you need the imparfait to paint that picture, il pleuvait. That describes the ongoing situation, while je suis sorti is the specific thing that happened during that time.
Okay, so we've looked at a few specific grammar fixes. But these mistakes aren't just random. They're usually symptoms of a much bigger habit, translating directly from English in your head. To really, truly break through this plateau, we gotta go deeper than just grammar. We need to shift how we think.
This quote says it all, really. This is the goal. True fluency isn't about being a perfect, walking, talking translator of your own thoughts. It's about breaking that habit and just expressing yourself directly, using the building blocks that French gives you. When you translate word for word, you can create a sentence that is grammatically okay, but to a native speaker, it just sounds clunky and unnatural. It doesn't have that smooth, fluid sound. Honestly, learning to adopt French ways of phrasing ideas is maybe the biggest key to unlocking that next level of fluency. This is a perfect example. I am excited translates word for word to je suis excité, but a French person would almost never say that in this context. Instead, they'd use this fantastic expression j'ai hâte de, which literally means something like I have haste to. It captures the exact same feeling of excitement, but it does it in a completely authentically French way.
All right, that's enough theory. Let's get our hands dirty and actually put this stuff into practice. It's time to test your instincts.
So, I'm going to show you 3 sentences, and each one has a blank space. Thinking about what we've just covered, see if you can fill them in. Just take a moment and give it your best shot.
Okay, got your answers in mind? Let's go through them. For number 1, the answer is sont. Why? Because les fleurs is plural. Simple as that. For the second one, it's su réussit à son examen. The verb réussir just goes with the preposition à. And for number 3, the answer is nous allions. That phrase chaque été, every summer, tells us it was a repeated habit in the past, and for that we need the imparfait. So how did you do?
So, what's the big takeaway here? Breaking out of this plateau isn't about making some giant leap forward overnight. It's about all the small, consistent improvements you make every single day. So I'll leave you with this question. What's one small change you're going to make to your French today? Maybe you'll just focus on double-checking your agreements, or maybe you'll try to use j'ai just once. That one small step, that's your breakthrough. Thanks for joining this explainer.
All right, let's talk French. For so many of us who've reached an advanced level, there's always that one final boss, that last grammatical mountain to climb. And you know what I'm talking about, the subjunctive. Well, today, we're going to give you the tools to finally conquer that beast for good. I mean, if you're at a C1 level, you've already done the heavy lifting. You've got the vocabulary, the complex sentence structures, but the subjunctive, it can still feel like a bit of a mystery, can't it? It's like you know the rules, but getting the feel for it, the when and the why, that's the tricky part. So let's think of this as the key that's going to unlock that final level of fluency for you.
So, here's our game plan. We'll start with the big one, the certainty versus doubt divide. Then, we'll look at some automatic triggers, total lifesavers. After that, we'll build the past subjunctive, see how mood can totally change the meaning of a sentence, and finally, we'll test your mastery. Simple as that.
All right, let's dive into our first section, the certainty/doubt divide. And honestly, this is the master key. I want you to forget about memorizing a million different phrases for just a second. Because if you can really, truly grasp this one core concept, you are basically 80% of the way there. This is it.
Okay, so it really all boils down to this fundamental split. You've got 2 teams. On one side, you have the indicative. Think of this as the mood of certainty, of reality, of objective facts. It's what you use when you're stating something you believe is true. Then, on the other side, you have the subjunctive. This is the mood of doubt, subjectivity, opinions, and emotions. You're not stating a fact, you're expressing your personal take on something.
That's exactly it. The subjunctive is the mood of uncertainty. It's basically the language of your inner world, you know? It's for expressing what you want, what you're worried about, what you doubt, what you think is necessary. It's not about describing the world as it is, it's all about describing the world as it could be, or should be, or maybe just how you wish it would be.
Okay, so getting the vibe of the subjunctive is the master key, for sure. But the good news is, French also gives us some amazing shortcuts. Think of these as automatic triggers, the non-negotiables. These are the phrases that just take all the guesswork right out of the equation.
So check these out. Conjunctions like bien que and quoique, they both mean although, or prouve que, which means provided that. As soon as you see one of these, that's your signal. Ding, ding, ding. Your brain should just automatically switch into subjunctive mode. No thinking required. It's like a freebie from the grammar gods. You gotta love it.
All right, let's move on to building the past subjunctive. So what happens when you want to talk about doubts or feelings about something that's already in the past? Well, that's exactly what the past subjunctive is for. I know, it sounds kind of intimidating, but trust me, it's way more straightforward than you think. It's really just a logical, step-by-step process. It's literally a simple 3-step recipe. Step 1, pick your helper verb, either avoir or être, just like you always do for the passé composé. No surprises there. Step 2, and this is the only new part, you take that helper verb and you put it in the present subjunctive. Then step 3, you just tack on the past participle of your main verb, which, hey, you already know how to do. That's it. Let's look at an example.
Here we go. Je doute qu'il soit venu. Let's break it down. The phrase je doute que, I doubt that, that's our trigger for the subjunctive, right? We're talking about something in the past, he came, so we need the past subjunctive. The main verb is venir, and that one takes être. So what's the present subjunctive of être for il? It's soit. Then you just add the past participle venu. Put it all together, soit venu. See? It's just pure logic, step by step.
Okay, this next part is where things get really cool. in my opinion. We've gone over the rules, we've looked at the mechanics, now let's talk about the artistry. This is where you, as a speaker, get to wield the subjunctive like a tool to add all this incredible nuance and subtlety to what you're saying.
Okay, let's look at this first sentence. Je cherche un tuteur qui connaît le subjonctif. Notice the verb here, connaît. That's the indicative. By using the indicative, you're basically stating a fact. You're saying, this tutor exists, and I am looking for him. Maybe you've got a specific person in mind. You're looking for the tutor who knows the subjunctive. But now, look at this next one. Je cherche un tuteur qui connaisse le subjonctif. The only thing we changed was that one verb ending, from connaître to connaisse. But wow, the entire meaning just shifted. Now you're expressing uncertainty. You're searching for a tutor, any tutor who might have this skill. You're hoping they exist, but you're not sure. It's not a search for a real person anymore. It's a search for an ideal.
So just think about that for a second. With one tiny little change to a verb, you've completely altered the reality of your sentence. You've gone from stating a cold, hard fact to expressing a wish or a hope. That, right there, is the power of the subjunctive. It gives you this incredible precision in your communication.
All right, you've seen the theory, you've seen the mechanics, you've even seen the artistry. So now I think it's your turn. Let's put all this new knowledge to the test with a couple of quick challenges. You ready? Let's do it.
Okay, first one up. Bien que tu, and the verb is être, fatigué, tu dois finir. So what do you think? Take a look at that first part of the sentence. What's the trigger word there, and what mood does it demand? And the answer is sois. It's the subjunctive. And why? Well, remember what we talked about in section 2? Bien que is one of those automatic, non-negotiable triggers. If you see it, you use the subjunctive. Simple as that. Okay, you ready for the next one? Here it is. Je suis sûr qu'il. And the verb is pouvoir. Le faire. So what's the feeling here? What is that first phrase expressing? Is it certainty or is it doubt? The correct answer is peut, using the indicative. And the key is that phrase right at the beginning. Je suis sûr que. I am sure that. That is an expression of pure, 100% certainty. And as we learned from our #1 master rule, when you've got certainty, you use the indicative. So what's the big takeaway from all of this? I really want you to stop thinking of the subjunctive as just another boring verb chart you have to memorize. It's not. It is a super sophisticated tool that lets you express exactly what you're feeling. Your doubts, your hopes, your judgments. It's how you share your unique perspective on the world.
So there you have it. The final boss, maybe not so scary after all, right? You now have the keys to use the subjunctive not just correctly, but with real artistry. So the only question I have for you is, what kind of new, subtle meanings are you going to express in your very next French conversation?
Hey everyone, and welcome. So you want to make your French sound, well, more French, right? More sophisticated, more precise, and a whole lot more native-like. If that's you, then you've absolutely come to the right place. Today, we are going to dive into advanced relative clauses. Trust me, this is the secret sauce that's going to level up your language skills for real. All right, let's jump right in with a little challenge. How would you say this in French? The chair on which I'm sitting is old. Yeah, if you're kind of stuck there, don't worry, that is totally normal. You've probably realized that your go-to words, qui and que, they just don't work here. And that little puzzle is exactly what we're here to solve today. So here's our game plan for today. First, we'll talk about why que and coup aren't always enough. Then we'll introduce our new favorite tool, lequel. After that, we'll get into some really cool power-ups with prepositions. We'll also look at the big difference between formal and spoken French. And finally, it's going to be your turn to practice. Let's get started. All right, section 1, beyond que and K. Let's talk about why we even need more tools. I mean, you've probably gotten really comfortable with K, maybe even don't. And that's awesome. But the game changes when you start using prepositions. That's when you realize you need to upgrade your toolkit. So here's the core issue, the main rule we have to deal with. Simply put, you just can't stick a preposition like sur, avec, or pour right in front of qui or que. It's a no-go in French grammar. So if you want to say something a bit more complex, like the topic about which we spoke or the reason for which he left, well, you need a whole new key to unlock that kind of sentence. Okay, so what is that key? Let's get into level 1 and meet lequel. This is your new go-to tool for precision. Seriously, think of this as the start of your grammar upgrade, the thing that's going to let you build all those awesome, complex sentences you've been trying to make. So, what does lequel actually do? Well, at its heart, it's basically the hero that swoops in whenever a preposition is left hanging, looking for a partner. Its number one job is to add clarity. It points a big, shiny arrow directly at the noun you're talking about, so there's absolutely no confusion. Now here's where things get really cool. Lequel is a bit of a chameleon. It actually changes its form to match the gender and number of the noun it's replacing. So you've got 4 versions to work with, as you can see here. For masculine singular things, it's lequel. For feminine singular, laquel. And for the plurals, you've got lequels for masculine and lesquel for feminine. Simple as that. Okay, let's bring this back to our very first example to see it in action. Remember the chair on which I'm sitting? The French is voici la chaise sur laquelle je suis assis. Let's break that down. The noun is la chaise, right? That's feminine and singular. So we need the feminine singular form of our pronoun, which is laquelle. You put it right after the preposition sur, and boom, sur laquelle. See how perfectly that just clicks into place? Okay, you've mastered level 1. Are you ready to level up? Welcome to level 2, the power-ups. This is where things get really, really elegant. We're going to talk about these special contractions, auquel and duquel, which pop up when we're dealing with the prepositions a and de. You see, in the world of French prepositions, a and de are basically celebrities. They get special treatment. They don't just stand next to lequel. No, they actually fuse with it. They merge together to create one single smooth word. And if this sounds weird, it's really not. It's the exact same logic that turns a plus le into o. It's just a natural shortcut to make the language flow better. So let's look at the first power-up. It's the a contraction. The formula is super simple. A plus lequel equals auquel. That's it. It just smooshes together. And of course, just like before, this little guy adapts to gender and number, giving us auquel, à laquelle, auquels, and auquels. And you've probably guessed it. The exact same thing happens with the preposition de. The formula is de plus lequel, and that fuses into duquel. And once again, it follows the same pattern with its 4 forms: duquel, de laquelle, desquels, and desquel. See? Once you know the rule, it's totally predictable. Okay, that's a lot of forms, I know. So how do you actually use this stuff without getting your brain in a twist? Here is your super simple 3-step mental checklist. Step 1, just find the verb and the preposition it uses, like penser à to think of or parler de to talk about. Step 2, check the noun you're talking about, what's its gender and number. And finally, step 3, just put those 2 pieces together to build the right pronoun. Auquel, à laquelle, duquel, whatever you need. It's a little system that works every single time. Okay, theory time is over. Now for the really important part, the real world. How does this actually work in formal versus spoken French? Because, and this is a big one, what you learn in a grammar book is not always what you're going to hear in a real conversation. Knowing the difference is key. Okay, check this out. It's all about precision versus simplicity. If you're writing an essay or giving a formal speech, you would 100% say, c'est le film auquel je pensais. That is perfectly correct. But if you're just chatting with a friend, you're way more likely to hear them say, c'est le film que je pensais. They just simplify it. Same thing with the second example. La raison pour laquelle il est parti is beautiful formal French, but in everyday speech, you'll probably just hear la raison qu'il est parti. Spoken French loves shortcuts, so you need to know the formal way to write and sound smart, and you need to know the informal way so you can understand what's actually being said to you. All right, you've absorbed the theory, you've seen the real-world examples. Now it's time to face the final boss. It's practice time. This is how we're going to make sure all this new information really, truly sticks in your brain. Okay, here's your first question. You need to complete the sentence, Le film blank, je fais référence, est un classique. Go ahead, take a second and think about it. What goes in that blank? And the answer is, auquel. Did you get it? The reason is that the expression is always faire référence à something. And since le film is masculine and singular, you take your a, you add lequel, and they contract into auquel. Perfect. Okay, round 2. Ready? Complete this sentence. Les problèmes blank nous avons discuté sont complexes. The key here is to think about that verb, discuter. The correct answer here is desquels. So the verb is discuter de something, to discuss about something. The noun we're talking about, les problèmes, is masculine, and it's plural. So you take de, you add the masculine plural form lequels, and you get the power-up desquels. See? You're totally getting the hang of this. Okay, so let's do a quick recap. What are the most important things to remember from all this? First, use lequel and its buddies after prepositions like sur, pour, avec. Second, always make sure it matches the gender and number of the noun. Third, don't forget those special contractions for a and de, that's auquel and duquel. And finally, remember that this whole structure is your ticket to sounding really polished and advanced, especially in written French. So there you have it. You've just unlocked a brand new level in your French. This is a massive tool that lets you express complex ideas with so much more precision and elegance. Seriously, you've taken a huge step forward today. So that leaves me with one final question for you. What's next? Now that you've tackled this, what other part of French grammar are you ready to conquer? Thanks so much for joining me, and keep that momentum going.
Hey everyone, do you ever feel like your French is, well, technically correct, but just a little bit choppy? You know, like you're putting down one sentence and then another instead of weaving them together into a smooth, logical flow? Well, today we're going to fix that. We're diving into a super simple trick to instantly make your French sound way more sophisticated.
Okay, just look at this. On the left, we've got two totally fine but separate sentences. It's raining. I'm going out anyway. Simple enough, right? But now look at the right. Just by adding one little word, tutoie, the whole thing just transforms. It's suddenly more connected, more elegant. Honestly, it just sounds more French, doesn't it? This tiny change right here is the difference between good French and great French.
So how do we do it? How do we get from that basic, choppy level to sounding brilliant and cohesive? How do we build those little bridges between our ideas so we're not just communicating, but really expressing ourselves with some style? Well, that is exactly what we're about to break down.
And here's the secret. It's not about memorizing hundreds of new vocab words. Nope, it's all about mastering a few really powerful super connectors. Think of them like linguistic glue for your sentences. But it's not just any glue, it's the good stuff. It doesn't just stick ideas together, it shows the relationship between them. It's almost like a GPS for the person listening to you, guiding them through your thoughts.
And you know what the best part is? We're only going to focus on 4 of them to get this huge impact. That's it, just 4. These are our magic words for today. Toutefois, néanmoins, en revanche, and dès lors. I promise by the end of this, you'll know exactly when and how to pop these into your sentences to really level up your French.
All right, let's dive into our first couple of words. These guys are all about expressing opposition or contrast. And this is so important, right? I mean, it's how you build a solid argument or just explain 2 different sides of a story.
First up, we have toutefois and néanmoins. Now, the key word to latch onto here is surprising. You pull these out when you're about to introduce a contrast that's a little unexpected, something that makes your listener go, "Oh, I didn't see that coming." Now, they're pretty much interchangeable, but néanmoins can sometimes feel a little bit stronger, kind of like saying, "in spite of everything." But honestly, for now, just think of them as your power duo for any surprising twist.
In this example, just nails it. You say, the restaurant is expensive. Okay, so in my head, I'm thinking, all right, probably not worth it. But then, bam, you hit me with, toutefois, la nourriture est délicieuse. That, however, completely flips my expectation. That little word signals an unexpected positive that totally changes the game. It just adds this awesome layer of nuance, you know?
Okay, next up is en revanche. Now this is different from toutefois. With this one, we're not trying to be surprising. En revanche is all about a simple, direct contrast. It's your classic, on the one hand this, but on the other hand that. You're just putting 2 balanced ideas side by side to compare them.
This is a perfect example. Her brother is super athletic. En revanche, she prefers to read. See? No surprise there. It's just a simple fact. He likes sports, she likes books. It's a straight-up A versus B comparison, and en revanche is the perfect tool for that job. It handles that contrast so cleanly. Okay, so we've got contrast down. Let's move on to our last connector for today. This one is all about showing a logical result or consequence.
And that brings us to the fantastic dès lors. This is your go-to word whenever you want to say therefore or as a result of that. It forges this really strong logical link between 2 ideas. It's pure cause and effect. Because A happened, dès lors, B happened. Simple as that.
I mean, look how clean this is. The flight was canceled. Okay, that's our cause. So what's the direct logical result of that? Dès lors, nous avons dû prendre le train. Therefore, we had to take the train. That one word makes the connection between the two events so clear and, well, so elegant.
All right, you ready for the big reveal? We've learned the tools, we've seen how they work. Now let's circle all the way back to that very first example we looked at. But this time, we're going to see it with fresh eyes and understand exactly why it's so good.
And here we are back at the start. It's raining. So the normal logical expectation is you stay inside, right? But what are you doing? You're going out anyway. You're introducing a surprising contrast to what's expected. And that, right there, is why toutefois is the absolute perfect choice. It signals, hey, I know it's raining, but contrary to what you'd think, I'm still going out. See how it all just clicks into place now?
Okay, enough of me talking. You've seen the theory, now it's your turn to get your hands dirty. This is the part where it really sinks in and becomes second nature. I'm going to give you a few simple sentence pairs, and your mission is to use our new little toolkit to upgrade them.
It's a super simple three-step process. All you have to do is read the basic sentences, pick the best connector for the job, and then put it all together. Let's do it.
All right, here's your challenge. I've got 3 pairs of sentences for you. Your job is to connect them with the right word. Ready? First one, the project is difficult. It's very interesting. Next up, she studied a lot. She passed her exam. And the last one, Paris is a big city. Lyon is calmer. So go ahead, pause this right now, and for each one, figure out if you need toutefois, en revanche, or dès lors. Give it a go.
And we'll finish up with this thought. Now that you have these awesome new tools in your pocket, the real question isn't just about this little exercise. It's about getting out there and using them. So really think about it. In your very next French conversation, or maybe the next email you write, where are you going to use one of these connectors first to really make your ideas shine? All right, let's talk about one of the most powerful and honestly most fun parts of speaking French, the past tenses. Now, I know what you're thinking, grammar rules. But just for a minute, forget all that. We're going to look at these tenses for what they really are. They're like different camera lenses. Each one helps you tell a story in a totally different way. Okay, let's get into it.
So, take a look at this. On the left, we have il pleuvait. On the right, il a plu. Now, they both basically mean it rained. But here's the thing. In French, these two phrases paint completely different pictures. One sets a whole mood. The other just reports a fact. It's the difference between a blurry, atmospheric background and a sharp, specific event.
So that's the big question, right? What is the actual difference here, and how does picking one over the other totally change the story you're trying to tell? Once you get this, you're not just speaking French anymore. You're telling stories in French.
Okay, first up, let's talk about the tense that builds the world of our story, l'imparfait. This is your foundation. This is where it all starts. You know, the absolute best way to think about the imparfait is to imagine it's your story's wide-angle camera shot. It's not focusing on one single thing. Nope, it's capturing the entire scene. What the weather was doing, what people were wearing, how everyone was feeling. It's all about that continuous, ongoing background vibe.
So let's start building a little story using it. Le soleil brillait et les oiseaux chantaient. The sun was shining, the birds were singing. You see how those actions don't really have a clear start or finish? They're just happening. They create this continuous atmosphere, which is the perfect backdrop for what's about to happen next.
So, just to recap, you're going to reach for the imparfait anytime you're describing something, talking about feelings like I was happy, or mentioning things you used to do. Basically, if it was already going on in the background of your story, the imparfait is your go-to.
But, I mean, a story needs some action, doesn't it? Things have to actually happen. So let's bring in the tense that really drives the plot forward.
So, if the imparfait was our wide-angle shot, then the passé composé is the close-up. It zooms right in on one specific, completed action, an event, something that happened and then it was over. This is how you move your story from point A to point B.
Okay, time to drop some action into our peaceful little scene. Un homme est entré dans le parc et il a salué son ami. A man entered the park. Boom, that's a specific, finished action. Then he greeted his friend. Boom, another one. These verbs, the ones in the passé composé, they're the plot points. They're what pushes the story ahead.
So yeah, you're using the passé composé for the main events of your story. It's for that sequence of actions. First this happened, then this happened. These are the sharp, completed moments that actually build your narrative.
And this table just lays it all out so perfectly. The imparfait is the scenery, the backdrop. The passé composé, that's the action happening right in front of it. The imparfait feels kind of blurry and continuous, while the passé composé is sharp, specific, and done. It really is the difference between setting and plot.
Okay, so we've got our scene and we've got our main action. But you know what makes a story really deep? Backstory. And to add that, we need one more tool in our toolkit.
Let me introduce you to the plus que parfait. This is your flashback tool. And honestly, it's way simpler than it sounds. Anytime you're telling a story that's already in the past, and you need to talk about something that happened even before that, this is the tense you use. It's literally the past of the past.
Let's add some of that depth to our story right now. L'homme a salué son ami qu'il n'avait pas vu depuis des années. Okay, so he greeted his friend. But why is this a big deal? Well, because he hadn't seen him in years. You see, that not seeing happened before the greeting in the park. That's the plus que parfait giving us that crucial layer of backstory.
This timeline just makes it crystal clear. Way back in the past, years ago, they had not seen each other. That's our flashback. Then this afternoon, the sun was shining. That's our background scene. And just a moment ago, the man entered and greeted his friend. That's our main event. See how they all work together to tell a much richer story?
All right, now for a quick look at a tense you'll see all the time in books, but you probably won't use when you're, ordering a coffee.
And that is the passé simple. Functionally, it does the exact same job as the passé composé. It marks a completed past action. The only real difference is that it's super formal and literary. You're going to find it in classic novels and fairy tales, but you almost never hear people actually say it out loud.
So, il a salué son ami is what you'd actually say in a conversation. Il salua son ami is what you'd read in a novel by Victor Hugo. They mean the same thing, but they have a totally different vibe. It's good to know it exists so you can read it, but don't stress about using it when you talk.
All right, we have broken down all the tools. We've got our different camera lenses. Now, it's your turn to be the director and tell the story.
And here's your cheat sheet, your go-to guide. When you're telling a story in the past, just run through these 3 questions in your head. Am I just painting the background? Use the imparfait. Am I listing off the main events that happened? That's the passé composé. Am I explaining something that happened before all of that? You got it. That's the plus que parfait. It's really that simple. So let's put it to the test right now. How would you say this sentence in French? He was happy because he had finally found his friend. Think about it for a second. What's the ongoing feeling? And what action happened before that feeling started? The clues are all there.
And that's the real takeaway here. Choosing between these tenses isn't just about passing a grammar test. It's a creative choice. It's about deciding if you want to set a scene, report a specific action, or give some of that crucial backstory. It's how you go from just being a speaker of French to being a storyteller in French.
All right, let's talk about leveling up your French. We're going to unlock 2 super powerful structures that'll make you sound way more sophisticated and, honestly, just more natural. So let's get right into it.
I'm guessing the answer is a big yes, right? Well, good news, because we're about to go way beyond the basics. Think of this as adding a couple of pro-level tools to your French toolkit, the kind native speakers use all the time to shift focus and just make their sentences flow better. Seriously, this is going to be a major upgrade.
Okay, so first things first, let's start with what we all know, the active voice. This is pretty much the foundation of every sentence we learn at the beginning, and it's our starting point for everything we're going to cover today. So this is super straightforward, right? You got your subject, the mechanic, doing an action, repairing, to an object, the car. Simple, clear, direct. But what if you don't really care about the mechanic? What if the car is the real star of your story? How do you say that? And that, my friends, brings us to our first awesome tool, the passive voice. Think of it like a director's camera. Its main job is to swing the spotlight away from the person doing the action and shine it right on the person or thing getting the action.
So here's the bottom line. You pull out the passive voice when the thing getting the action is way more important than who did it. It's a great way to sound a bit more formal or to really emphasize a result. Like saying, the cure was discovered. Who cares who discovered it right now? The point is we have a cure. Or, and this is a classic, it's used to avoid blaming someone. Think, mistakes were made. Or, the window was broken. See, the focus is all on what happened, not who did it. All right, let's grab our original sentence and actually do this. We're going to perform a little sentence surgery here and put that car right where it belongs, front and center.
So how do we pull this off? It's actually a pretty simple formula. First, you take the object, in this case, la voiture, and you move it right to the beginning. It's the new subject now. Then, you pop in the verb être, to be, in whatever tense you need. After that, you add the past participle of the main verb, and hey, make sure it agrees with your new subject. Last step, if you still want to mention who did it, you can add them back in using the word par, which means by.
And voila, check out the difference. La voiture is totally the star of the show now. And did you spot that extra little E on repérer? That is so important. It's there because voiture is a feminine word, so the verb has to match. The focus is done a complete 180, from the mechanic to the car.
Okay, so we've got a handle on how to talk about what is done to something. But what about when you don't do the action yourself, but you make it happen? You have someone else do it for you. That's where our second amazing tool comes into play, the causative.
This structure is just so useful and efficient in French. It's super simple. You just use the verb faire plus whatever verb you want in its infinitive form. You use this all the time when you're arranging for something to be done instead of doing it yourself. It's such a clean, common shortcut you're gonna love. Let's go back to our car example because it's perfect for this. If I say, je répare ma voiture, you picture me, right? I'm in my garage, I've got oil on my hands, I'm the one under the hood with a wrench. But if I say, je fais réparer ma voiture, the picture changes completely. Now I'm probably just on the phone with the garage making an appointment. I'm having the car repaired. I'm the one causing it to happen, but I'm not doing the work. That is a huge difference. So let me ask you a quick question. In that sentence, je fais réparer ma voiture, who's actually got the tools out? You got it. It's the mechanic. But notice how the mechanic doesn't even have to be in the sentence. Why? Because the focus is all on me, the person who kicked the whole thing off.
Okay, I know this can be a little confusing for people learning French. Passive, causative, they can sound similar. So let's put them head to head. A direct comparison should make everything crystal clear.
This chart really lays it all out for us. Let's look at the passive voice first. The focus? It's on the thing receiving the action. The structure? That's our être plus a past participle. And the meaning is basically that something is done. Now look at the causative. The focus shifts to the person causing the action. The structure is that slick faire plus an infinitive. And the meaning? It's all about having something done. See the difference?
Okay, let's use an example we can all relate to. Pizza. If you say, la pizza a été livrée, that's passive. You're just announcing a happy fact. The pizza is here. The focus is on the pizza. But if you say, j'ai fait livrer une pizza, the focus is totally on you. It's like saying, I'm the hero who made this happen. I ordered the pizza. One is a statement about the pizza's status. The other is about your role in making it happen.
And there you have it. You've officially added two incredibly powerful tools to your French grammar toolkit. This is awesome. Let's just do a quick recap of the main points.
Okay, so here are the key takeaways. Just lock these in. First, use the passive voice when you want to put the spotlight on the receiver of the action. To build it, you're going to use être plus the past participle. Got it? Next, use the causative. That's our faire plus infinitive, whenever you get someone else to do something for you. And trust me, you'll be amazed how often you use that little shortcut. It's a game changer.
Look, this isn't just about memorizing grammar rules for a test. This is about giving you the power to tell better stories in French. You can now play with perspective. You can express ideas in a much more sophisticated way. Things that felt clumsy before, now you have the tools to say them elegantly. So what are you waiting for? Go out there and try them out. I can't wait to see what you do with them.